Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villeries Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villeries provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency, 504-556-0809 or davemietteINSagency.com.
For over 48 years, Southern Tires and Auto Repair has provided services across the New Orleans metro area. Southern Tires offers a range of tires for all vehicles and ATVs. We also have a full suite of auto repair options, including brake repair, rim repair, custom exhaust, steering and suspension, and so much more. Southern Tires and Auto Repair, 2550 Hickory Avenue in Metairie.
C&C Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, C&C provides patient-centered care for your entire family. C&C Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we're going to talk a lot about the New Orleans Saints, the LSU Tigers. We'll also talk about the Tulane Green Waves. There's been a change in Pelican land in terms of their head coach and the direction they'll be going. We'll discuss that as well. Breaking it down for us, one of our favorites, Mike Detillier of WWL Radio. Of course, his Mike Detillier Draft Report and so much more joins us on the program. Mike, how are you?
Thank you, Eric. I'm doing well.
Always good to have you. Mike, we're getting cranked up with football now. Talk a little about, of course, you're one thing about you is you're not just a local guy in terms of host. You're on around the nation and at all hours of the day and night as well. So you're starting to really pick up now.
Yeah, this is the time of year, draft time, and right before the start of the season. If college football season was starting in early September, SEC-wise, then I'd be super busy. But yeah, I'm ready for it, and it keeps me busy, keeps me out of trouble, you know what I mean?
Mike, I did want to ask you before we jump into the Saints. We know that, again, we've got the SEC, the AAC, the ACC with Notre Dame, the Big 12, Conference USA, and the Sun Belt that will be playing in the fall. The Big 12, Pac-10, Pac-12, pardon me, MAC and Mountain West have at least postponed to the spring. You're a guy that is a scout. You also, obviously, as I mentioned, are on shows around the country, both TV and radio. You have your fantastic draft guide. I wonder how this is going to affect players in terms of the NFL draft, if they're going to play in the spring. From a guy that gets a book together and everything else, not being able to see those guys in the fall, how do you think that's going to work out?
Well, you play in the fall or you don't play at all.
Okay.
Bottom line, this stuff about spring football, you know, my brother's older than me, okay, by more than 5 years. And, you know, he'd always say, man, when I first started going to school, they had this drill they would do if they would drop the nuclear bomb.
Right.
You know, this duck and cover. Now, what is that going to do you if they drop? But it was for morale.
Yes, it was.
Spring football's for morale, Eric. It's not. That's not going to happen.
Okay.
With that, my thing about it is the same issues you have today, you will have in February and March. And now, February and March, what is you in the middle of?
Right.
The height of flu,
yes.
pneumonia, cold season. And now you're dealing with the COVID situation. Convince me, anyone convince me that they can pull this off in the spring. It's not going to happen. And then if you play in the spring, that little short layover, and then you right back at it.
Right.
You know, I think this was a bit of a pea and shell game by the Big Ten and Pac-12. I don't think they ever wanted to play. When it came down to, they were hearing from players saying, hey, we want a little bit of a say in this.
Right.
We maybe want to have a players union here to say on what can happen, maybe some of the specific issues being involved with here. There's a lot of college presidents will not admit it, but they've told me privately, I really don't care for sports at all.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I don't care for it. I
They're worried about the academic side only.
That's it. And so for football became a distraction for them. Also, too, they got a lawyer in their ear saying, hey, you know, you might be liable if something happens down the line. All of a sudden, they come up with this myocarditis. Now, okay, I have family members and people I've worked with that had myocarditis in 2007, 2009. Okay, they act like myocarditis just got discovered yesterday, like Columbus, you know, planting a flag down. My thing is, you got to be kidding me. Okay, if you have myocarditis and you can't play, bottom line. Some of this is health related. Eric, it's all about power and greed and money.
Right.
That's what the NCAA, and you're seeing it in front of your very eyes, how they're not being transparent about how they made the decision. And they're throwing it, oh, it's not our decision, the doctors told us not to do it. But then when the Big Ten people get together, well, we never talked to the doctors. They just submitted the reports. And I mean, you know, it's a pea and shell game all across the board here. And I think, you know, one of the things in talking to college head coaches, especially at the smaller level, okay, it becomes a financial issue.
Absolutely. You got to get the big play games from all the big universities.
And so you see a Nickel State or Southeastern, it becomes, you know, questionable money-wise. How would you make this work? But then when the Southland said, okay, we're canceling all Southland Conference games, but if you have a money game, you can play it. What did that tell you?
Right.
That tell you, okay, if some team is going to pay you $650 to play, well, you can play that game, but you can't play the Southland Conference game. Come on. This is so unbelievable to watch in front of your very eyes that the NCAA, and then to hear Mark Emmert play like he's got no control of anything.
Exactly.
Okay, you're the president of the NCAA.
Why have the NCAA if at a time like this they don't take control?
My thing is, what the hell are they paying you $4.5 million a year for?
There you go.
To do a do-nothing job? Now, again, a lot of people here don't like to be critical of Emmert because of his time at LSU. Okay, I get it. And Scott being his son-in-law. But that has nothing to do with Mark's job today.
Yes.
And some of it is out of his control, but what is your job as the president of the NCAA anyway?
Right.
And that's why you got to have one person in charge to have this done. And like it or not, my say is law. And that's just the way it's going to be. And we all going to get together and we can discuss it, but there's going to be a one-man decision on this. I do think that what you've seen in college football today and in college sports today is the ultimate height of greed and power of, I don't want to give up anything we have as a conference or a school to some 18, 19-year-old to have a say in that.
Right.
You know, come on. Now, they're ready to take his check when he becomes a professional player to build a building or anything else. They real quick for that. I think it's, we all got to fight through this. You think about the person that works at a convenience store and meets up with people every day and you're fooling with packages other people have fooled with and you're putting it on the shelf. You have day-to-day issues. You work at a hospital, those sort of things. Okay, the football players, and I think most of the top coaches have said it, they're sort of in a semi-bubble.
Yes.
But I think the biggest fear for college presidents were, okay, we can't do this at campus. So you're the only people on campus. Are you an employee now?
Right, which leads me to what some of the players were looking for, which was hazard pay, okay, which I think got a lot of the conference and university presidents fearful.
Unplugged it.
Exactly.
That's when they unplugged it. No, you want money? Oh, no, we're not giving you anything.
Right. That'll take away your amateur status for what that's worth.
And okay, because
Yeah.
we all know that this is semi pro ball
Exactly.
anyway.
Exactly.
If you're talking about football, basketball,
Right.
and baseball,
big time.
Yeah, it's big
Big time
time
conference, right.
sports. So again, it all comes down to what it all comes down to, Eric.
Dollar.
Money.
Right.
Bottom line. Okay, the health concerns, some of it was there, but you have to go to work. I go to work. Other people go to work. People behind the scenes here, they come into work too. You taking a chance. I get it, but don't you feel safer? And even the players have said it. You know, think about it when you're 18, 19, 20 years
Right.
old. You know, and you don't have to go to college, and you also on your own. Yeah, I can do that online stuff.
Right.
I got a lot of free time on my hands.
Right. Plus, they feel invincible anyway.
Yeah. When you're that young,
Right,
yeah,
you do.
You Superman or Superwoman.
Right, exactly. No doubt about it. Do you think there will be a change as with the SEC moving forward and some of the other conferences moving forward in the fall, and then the possibility of, again, athletes that are playing at these universities like the Pac-10, Big 12, who decided to go to the spring? Do you think there will be a push to get them to be able to maybe go back to fall football? Or do you think it's in concrete, done, finished?
Concrete, done, finished. Big 10, Pac-12 will not play football.
How does that affect the individuals that were looking to go pro? How does it affect a guy like you who needs to scout? How does it affect NFL scouts going forward? Are they just looking at the tape from the year before?
That's all you can do. You can only look at the tape that you have the year before or years before on them. But there are always exceptions to the rule. A year ago at this time, if I would have told you there's only one running back that'll get picked in round one,
Right.
and his name is Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
I'd have laughed at you.
No, you'd have had the people in the back take me out of here and have somebody else drive me home.
Where'd you have him originally?
I had him as a 7th round pick.
Okay, there you go.
Joe Burrow, I did have him in my top 100. He was 99. He just made it. Just made it. And he becomes the first overall pick in the draft.
Yes.
So you can see where now the water's coming over the dam, where a lot of these top players, I'm going to just train for the draft.
Right.
And that's going to be the end of the story. And some of them do have health concerns, and I get that. And listen, if you decide to sit out because of it, I would not say one negative thing about you.
Right.
And it's not going to affect that, because I've had people, it's going to affect their draft status. What? Bosa played 2 games for Ohio State as a junior and decided, not playing no more.
Right.
Got a little core muscle injury. I'm going to rehab. Into that, he was the 2nd pick in the draft.
Right.
Bottom line, if you're talented, they're gonna. But there's always going to be that exception. I look back at Patrick Queen. A year ago at this time, he had started 4 games. He had been mostly an outside linebacker.
Yes.
They kick him inside. He becomes a 1st-round pick. Justin Jefferson was a 2nd-round pick for me, and he played his way into round 1. That's not a huge move, but when you are a late-round pick,
You a 7th round pick?
and move into round 1, and you're the only running back pick, and that tells you a lot. So I think for the Clyde Edwards-Helaire's of the world, I got to come back.
Yeah.
I got to come back and play.
Right, and then, but if you're in a situation where your program is not playing and the NCAA is not going to allow you to transfer, I mean, you're pretty much stuck at that point.
That's going to be interesting on the ruling of can you transfer.
Right. And I think tomorrow's the
Today.
day, right? When they're going to rule on that, if you can transfer and not lose any eligibility.
Because man, you can hear.
You want to talk about teams that were
those
stacked,
hands, those hands starting to ring
Right, sure.
with coaches that are saying, "Wait a minute, man, I can get my hands on that guy." You know. Now again, you got to have room for scholarships.
Sure.
So that's going to be the other play. Does the NCAA allow
expansion of scholarship?
Expansion, a little bit of a scholarship. Okay, we'll give you 2 extra scholarships this year. If that happens, Eric, it's Katie bar the door.
Well, it's again the rich getting richer, right?
But isn't college football the business to sell college football?
Absolutely.
So, okay, if I've got a team that's pretty good and I need a quarterback and Justin Fields is out at Ohio State,
there's no doubt. You
bring
jump
him
on-
in.
Right.
Or if I need help at the left tackle position and I see a guy, like Panay at Oregon,
Right.
oh man, hey, listen, if you're not declaring now, come play with us that final year.
Yep.
So that's going to be an interesting decision by the NCAA, how they rule on that, because they have been given waivers to people.
Yes, they have.
Almost like if a leaf flew into the desk, stamped it, and you getting it. Are you going to deny that now? And then you know where that's headed, Eric. Because if they deny it Friday, come Monday it's in court.
There's no doubt. That was the next thing I was going to talk about. Let's talk some LSU. Folks, we'll get to the Saints and Pelicans in the second half of the program tonight. On this lines, Cary Vincent Jr., he decides again to forego this year. He's going to work out and get ready for the draft. Justin Thomas has also left the teams. Both of them had listed COVID-19 issue. In the terms of Justin Thomas, his deal was his family members had COVID-19. When you talk about Vincent, how does this affect him? See, to me, with COVID-19, possibility of injuries, is it better for him to be on the field, still showing scouts what he can do, or is it better for him to do what he's doing, get a personal trainer and work out and get ready for the draft?
Eric, in January, I told Coach O, he's coming out. Okay, what does he have to gain this year? You got 3 years of film on him. Okay, he played as a freshman, and he's been basically a starter for you for the last 2 years. In the nickel or at corner, and he's played some of the dime safety. So you know what you're getting here. He's an undersized corner who'll play inside in the NFL, and he can play safety. Similar to what you see the Saints doing with P.J. Williams. Very similar type player, except he's faster. The one thing you get him on the track, man, when he's going to work out, you're like, whoa. I thought had he come out in the 2020 draft, he would have been a top 110 pick, meaning late third, very early fourth round pick. I'm not sure where this is going to drop with him because I don't know the other people that are coming out. You may have 200 juniors come out this
Especially
year.
after what's been happened, right?
And so you'll see what happens. For him, I would have loved to have seen him come back. His experience, his versatility, that he could play a couple positions in Bo Pelini's defense. But it's not going to affect his draft status one bit. Okay, with Neil Farrell, you know, he decides, okay, I'm not going to play this year, but I'm going to come back and play in 2021. He knew that his draft status wasn't good enough at that stage to declare early, and I'm going to come back, and hopefully things will be better, and I can showcase my skills. So it's, you're looking at two different situations here, but every day you see there's a top player. I'm coming out. I'm coming out. And some of them have only played 1 year of college football. You look at Rondale Moore at Purdue. Okay, he played 1 year. He gets hurt last year. And now he's declared early for the draft. So, you know, he's going to try to work out with the trainer, everything else. So he'll have a nice big bill. Even that trainer gives it to him. But, you know, he's coming out early. And I think most people in the Big Ten and Pac-12 feel exactly like me. If you don't play in the fall, you don't play at all. There won't be any football.
How is Coach O dealing with the new normal in college football? When I say that, no spring practice, somewhat of an enhanced fall schedule now in terms of practice schedule, almost again like a little mini NFL mini camps. It's different, and it's an adjustment. How is he dealing with that?
Best as he could be, I guess. You know, the one thing with O, and I think it's been some of the biggest change in him is his ability to adapt to what's in front of him. And he realizes that. And what we talked about with Justin Thomas and Neil Farrell and Vincent, they might not be the only three. You know, he might be dealing with others that decide to leave a little bit later on. And so that's always in the back of your mind. But this is a really talented team. I always think the lack of practice, and I think this goes for the NFL too, does not affect so much the pitch and catch game. I think that comes around pretty quickly. I think what it really affects, line play, offensive, defensive line play, and also the physical part of tackling. Okay, you haven't tackled for LSU since January. Getting yourself in the right angle and the position to make a tackle, physically making sure you wrap up well. That's not something you can just practice on your own. You have to do it. To play football, you got to practice it from a physicality standpoint. I think that's the big adjustment. And I'll say this, you don't catch LSU early, you might not catch them. Now, they got the two big games. Early on against Florida, in Gainesville, that'll be interesting. you know, because man, Gainesville's rough to play. I don't care if September, October, man, it is.
Right.
It is the most humid place in the world to play.
That's October 17th.
and that's really hot to play there. Now, you might only have 20,000 people there in that stadium. Florida's a good football team. It'll be a huge test for LSU. But if you get past there, you know what's setting up.
Right.
That you may again see an undefeated LSU team going up against an undefeated Alabama team. Tiger Stadium has basically been home field advantage for Alabama.
Yes.
It has not been a home field advantage at all for LSU.
True.
But you've got to win now, okay? They're not invincible anymore. And it sets up just an unbelievable type game in that spread of time where I think LSU's draw the schedule. Ocherall couldn't have fixed it better.
For Alabama as well now.
Oh, no, I agree.
But the SEC helped them both in terms of the little sisters that they put on their
schedule. They both threw them a little bit of a bone on that. Say, okay, brother, this is what you're going to get. But, man, if you get past Florida, and I think Alabama playing A&M, which I think is the most intriguing of the SEC teams, because that's the team everybody says, okay, this year they have to break out. Either that or Jimbo's in big trouble, because you're not paying him that type of money to win 8 or 9 games. I can get a lot of coaches to A&M to win 8 or 9 games. And so now he's got to be able to put himself in a position to play for the SEC championship. And early on he's got Bama, and late he's got LSU.
Yes. And as I mentioned with that schedule, Vanderbilt and Missouri were the two teams that were added to LSU's schedule. At Vandy, Missouri at LSU. So, the schedule gods were very favorable to LSU.
If anybody was saying novenas, they almost unhooked one of the chains.
Yes.
Because, it really went well for LSU, and it went well for Alabama.
Hearing really good things about Miles Brennan right now, up to 220 pounds. We know weight was a big problem when he came to LSU. We've talked about it before. You and I have talked about it in this program. We've been talking about it now for a while. LSU and Tulane kind of mirroring each other, with, again, having guys that are really first-time starters for the most part, and Keon Howard for Tulane, Miles Brennan for LSU, and then freshmen behind both of them. Talk about the quarterback position at LSU.
Yeah, there's not a lot of depth behind there. And so, bottom line is if I have an area of concern for LSU, it's offensive line. Okay, you lost 4 starters and you lost one of your key reserves. Oh, those guys in the National Football League. So now you return back 1 starter in Austin Deculus who's been out, with an injury. And a new center, and you know how I feel about that. I think that other than quarterback, I think is the most difficult position to play. You're making all the calls, and I think Shanahan can do that. He's a smart guy. The physicality part of playing in the Ivy League against Cornell and Yale is a heck of a lot different when you're going up against Texas A&M and Alabama and Florida.
First room in Yankee Stadium. That's the comparison.
You got a difference there, and it's the cohesiveness of that unit. 5 guys working as one. That's why I think Alabama has the advantage this year. They lost a couple, but they got 3 returning starters, and the 2 other guys they bringing in, they saw extensive playing time because they were kind of too deep last year. Ed's trying to build that too deep, and I heard him say this week about, my backup at left tackle is Xavier Hill, freshman, true freshman.
Right.
My backup at right tackle, we're getting Charles Turner, who was a 240-pound center, now up to 280. He's backing up. He's running with the 2s. And Marcus Dumerville, a true freshman. Ain't none of them took a snap, And I sent him this information that I did a study over the last 6 years in the teams in the Power 5 conferences. What positions get injured the most? Guards 1, offensive tackles 2.
Wow.
1 and 2. And it's clear cut, 1 and 2. And you have some depth at guard at LSU. Certainly have that there with Ingram, who has seen some starting time. Chason Hines has seen playing time and a couple of starts. And you have Anthony Bradford and Cordell Thomas there. Okay, so you have a little bit of depth. The tackle positions, Eric, you got no depth other than young kids that have not played. So what happens if you lose Rosenthal
Right.
for a game or two?
Or you have a problem with COVID-19.
That's the other issue. Because now, and I'll say this about pro football too. It's an O-line. Buddy DiLiberto stole from Richie Pettibone, and Richie stole it from George Hallis.
Right.
It's not who you play, but when you play them. This year, there'll be no question about that part of not necessarily of who you playing, but what they have on the field, depth-wise, not only because of injury,
Right.
the COVID situation.
Well, and the good news is both for Tulane and LSU, except for the initial outbreak at LSU, there's been no issues. I think there have been 5 players that have tested positive at Tulane, and again, no athletes really since they have been in. The NBA's been in a bubble. The Saints
And it's worked.
Right. No, it has worked. It has worked. NFL's in a semi-bubble. Again, Sean Payton's already talking about when they get to the playoffs. They want to be in a bubble. How do you deal with maybe somewhat of a bubble, or can you get a bubble in college football?
That's the tricky part.
It's tough.
It's going to be really tough to do that. And that's where I've had some LSU assistants tell me, Mike, this team has more talent than the team a year ago.
Do you agree with that?
I think when you look at it player for player, they might. The thing about it is, and they all say but, so it's not the and, but when they give you the but, that's when I hit the brakes. But that team was so focused, there was no trouble issues, so to speak. They understood the task at hand, and they were very focused. Now you've got a younger group here who may have more talent,
right? But not
do they have the focus that, hey, I'm not going out. I'm not going to hit the streets. I'm not going to go to this bar. We don't know at that particular stage. But I know Ed has preached it to him since that one time they did go out. That, hey, that's off limits. But I always tease him. I wanted to be in there when he made that speech. I did know the 18, 19, 20-year-old.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. You knew it very well. Scott Linehan, Bo Pelini, what do they bring to the table?
Bo Pelini is a hyper-aggressive coach, front seven-wise. Dave was not that type of guy for pressure. Bo is going to be that guy, figuring out ways to get pressure on the quarterback. He's always been a big believer in that pressure breaks the pipe, and let's get after him. If we sit in coverage, occasionally you can make a play, but if you give that quarterback enough time to throw it, Eric, he's going to pick you apart today. They too good at it. We got to affect him. And now what you see, it's twofold. Pete Jenkins and I had this conversation at the line camp a couple years back, and man, Pete would blow the whistle, tweet, tweet. Defensive tackles here, defensive ends there. And I'd see about 5 guys go to the ends, and I'm like, wait a minute. And, there's 25 defensive tackles. 30 in a group. I'm like, wait a minute. Pete, we're going to have a problem. Because eventually this is going to catch up in college football and the overflow into professional football, where all those 6'3", 6'4", maybe 6'5" guys that would have played defensive end or outside linebacker, man, I don't want to play defense. I want to play receiver or tight end. So now you got to overflow there, but you don't have it at defensive end, so where you got to come get pressure? Right up the middle. You can still find the really good interior players, but you're going to see more pressure, Eric. I'm telling you. And I did a look at it. There was 22% more pressure from interior blitzes from 2017 to 2019. That trend's not going to stop because, okay, tell me who's the best edge pass rusher in the SEC today. Okay, if you got to think about it, there's potential guys, but is there that signature guy? Now, last year you would say, oh, well, if he's healthy, Keelavon Chason is the guy. Allen the year before at Kentucky. You got to think about it. And the one guy you could say in the nation, who's the best edge rusher? Oh, a guy at Miami or Florida. Oh, I'm not playing this year. I'm coming out early for the draft. Russo, he decided not going to do it. And that's a kid at Michigan who I think is really good. He ain't playing. He's going to declare early for the draft. So it's few and far between where you can find numbers, receivers. Man, they got a list of them. Tight end, it's lengthy. And I think it's also affecting the secondary, where I think you're seeing a little bit more numbers there. You can practice 7-on-7. It's changed the world, college football-wise. It's changed it from high school to college. You're getting guys coming out of the college ranks. They starting in the NFL. They ain't watching.
Yes.
You know, we grew up in the 70s. That quarterback sat and he watched
Right.
for a year or so. Then he became a starter.
Not now.
Now you got to play him.
Right.
So I think it's a different world. In the pitch and catch game, you can practice that 7-on-7.
Right.
You know, before the COVID, you could practice that in the South or out West 10 months out the year if you wanted to. It's a different game, and I think you're starting to see now the difference. So I think Pelini's going to come up with things, a lot more interior pressure, because a straight line to the quarterback.
Yes.
And either that, I got him moving. You know, how well can he throw when he's on the move, so to speak? And with that speed LSU has on defense, it's going to be interesting. I think what Scott brings to the table is, I think, more involvement with the biggest development position at LSU, tight end.
Okay.
I think
He's got a pretty good one to work with.
All I'm saying is, Eric, I grew up with a guy. He lived across the street from me for years, in Shane Sellers, who became one of the great horse jockeys of the 80s, 90s, early 2000s.
Yes.
Now he trains horses now. But when he was a kid, you know, you had all these, you know, little horses that were running the yard, 1.5-year or 2-year-old horses, and he would say, "That's the one. That's the one I'm gonna tell my dad to buy." I'm like, "No, we out here 10 minutes." And he's, no, that's the one. You could tell. You know, there's certain things about it that he could spot. You know, Eric Gilbert gets on the field, it don't take you long.
Right.
LSU has not seen anything like Gilbert at tight end, ever. With that size, that speed, that ability to catch the football so cleanly. And they got a young man behind him in Cole Taylor from Colorado, who's a really good player too, redefining the position. Okay, Scott coached Calvin Johnson, who was a receiver at Detroit, and a really good one.
Yes.
So here's the thing. Eric Gilbert saw double team work his entire life. He was never one-on-one.
Right.
On that LSU team, you got Jamar Chase on one side, you got Terrace Marshall, you got Racing McMath,
Right.
now you got Gilbert. Okay, which
Right.
one you going to give double team to? I'm going to double team Jamar. Gilbert's one-on-one. And I'm just telling you, you just hear it in Orgeron's voice. And I think he doesn't want to get too excited about it, but he's one of them, man, that's the stallion right
Miles
there.
Brennan needs to be excited. That could be his best friend.
And here's the thing, you know it's a really good player when the upperclassmen start saying, man, Eric Gilbert's something special. So I think that bringing that more involved, and I do think, even though Scott's worked in different systems, I think you play to Miles Brennan's strength,
Yes.
which is a little bit more of a deeper pass than Joe. Joe was great in the short, intermediate part of the game. Pick it, and then bang, that guy takes off with it running. Now, he could throw the deep ball, but Miles got a rifle. And I know Steve Ensming has told me this all the time. I look at college plays all the time, and 4 or 5 times out the game, they got a guy wide open, and the quarterback either misses or the receiver doesn't find it, and you know, and he misfires on it.
Yes.
When you get those 4 or 5 shots, you got to hit on at least a couple of the 4. You got to hit on 3 of the 5 to make them pay at that point in time. I think you'll see LSU expand the field a little bit longer with Miles, and also too with 2 big power runners with Curry and Tyron Davis-Price, because nobody can replace Clyde as a receiver. I think John Emery's a good receiver.
Yes.
But, man, Clyde was special in his ability to set you up, get separation downfield. I think last year what got under Orgeron's skin a little bit, a lot of times, Clyde would break off a 30-yard run, then the next play, the runner gets a yard, 2 yards. You know, I think he wants a little bit more consistency with the power running game. That puts the onus on the offensive line, too. But boy, when you got Chris Curry and Tyron, you got 2 guys there that can make some big-time hay, and you're good in the special teams part of the game. I think that was a little uncertain last year because you didn't know about your place kicker.
Yes.
Now, you know about him now.
Absolutely.
And you could arguably say they got 2 of the top 5 players in college football, Stingley, Jamar.
Yep. No doubt. Mike Detillier is our guest from WWL Radio. Of course, Mike Detillier's Draft Report. I'm Eric Asher. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. We'll hear from our underwriters. We'll come back. We'll talk Saints. We'll talk Pelicans. We'll talk Tulane. Stick around.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Experiencing rough weather with a bad roof can be a nightmare. It doesn't have to be.
Suburban Roofing, because when it comes to roofing, there is a difference.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Tonight, Mike Detillier of WWL Radio is our guest. We'll move to the Saints. Saints in the kind of same situation that LSU's in, kind of, when you look at it. NFL, when you just look at athletes in general, they're very structured. They're used to, a certain schedule. You've got a situation where, again, you get your body ready for the season. It's like a little clock. You've had no OTAs. You've had no mini camp, no preseason. You only get 14 padded practices. Mike, I know everybody's on the same even playing field here. How do you get your body ready for the NFL game? How do you get yourself? How do you get the team? The Saints not so much because they got a veteran team coming back. But if you got a team that's rebuilding, how do you get those guys ready in this short period of time?
That's the tough part. If you're Carolina and
Right.
you Matt Rule, how will you be able to do this? And even in Tampa, with a new quarterback, with even as good as Brady is, you got Gronkowski, now you bring in Shady McCoy. You got some new pieces here. That may take a little while. The advantage I think New Orleans has is only one changeover on the coaching staff and Mike Nolan.
Yes.
And basically you have brought back, 90% of your core players from a year ago. I think that's a huge advantage. You know what you're doing. You know the system. And, I live real close to a former NFL coach who's retired now. And he always says, you know what the early days of training camp's all about? A head coach playing with his new toys. He said, listen, I coached under Paul Brown.
Right.
He said, as good as Paul was, I want to see that draft choice. I want to see that guy we traded for. Didn't have free agency back then. He said, it's always about the new toys in the toy box now. And he said, if you're an assistant coach, it's about the what ifs, if depth-wise, because if I have an injury. And I think that'll play a bigger part than ever this year. And it's more situational today than ever before. So I think the team like New Orleans has a huge advantage early in getting into a rhythm than a team like the Raiders, who every day is 52 pickup, or the Carolina Panthers, who are going through transition, not only player-wise, but coaching-wise. So that terminology is different. I just think the Saints are, you could not kind of build a situation better. If you're going to win it, it's going to be this year.
Rookies that are going to be coming in, and let's say the three draftees, Ruiz, Bond, Troutman, and I'll just leave Stevens off to the side here because I think he's still a project. How significant do you think their playing time will be this year? Will it be situational for them? And how much does this hurt them in terms of not having the mini camp and the OTAs?
Well, with Ruiz, there's no adjustment. He's going to be a starter.
Right.
You know,
either guard or center.
Yeah, and he's been working mostly at right guard. But I expect that they'll move him, you know, and they'll play him some at center.
Right.
That'll be a decision on being comfortable. You know, I read all this stuff about cadence for a center. And if you had a young quarterback, that made sense. Not what if you got a guy that's 41 years old. He's making a lot of those calls. You think last year with a rookie center that Eric was making all those calls? No, Drew was helping Eric with those calls. As the season grew along, Eric grew accustomed to making some of those calls. But that was Drew early on, making that. So even if you're playing with a rookie center, it's not about the cadence and everything else and making calls. It's about 5 guys working as one. And we talked about it last year. This time, Zach Streif and I were walking watching, and they ran a play. And Teron Armstead and Andrews Pete, they like 4 yards downfield, and McCoy still got the ball in his hands. He ain't snapped it yet. Okay, there's a little bit of timing involved with that center exchange and the 5 guys working up front. It's not about making that call or picking it. Not when you got Drew Brees. Now, if you in a different sort of town with a young quarterback, that puts even more pressure on the center. Here, it's a little bit different because you have that veteran quarterback. So I think Ruiz, he's going to be the starter. With Zach Bond, I had to laugh because I had a friend of mine who's a former, he's a semi-retired coach, gives me a call. He says, man, I was looking at all this stuff on the internet about people raving about Zach Bond's athleticism. He said, I just look at your draft guy. He was a former wide receiver and quarterback in high school, played basketball. He was a 100 and 200 meter state champion sprinter. I would expect he's going to be a good athlete, right? And so I think taking that, Zach doesn't have a tremendous amount of experience at linebacker. But what he can do, Eric, is get after the quarterback. His initial step up the field and get after the guy. Already you can kind of hear the wheels clicking in Ryan Nielsen's head about I'm going to set up packages where Bond is going to be that designated pass rusher. And I can get Cam on one side, Bond on the other, and get at it, so to speak. If I'm a young quarterback and Zach Bond is not rushing me, I'm throwing the ball at him. I'm going to test him. Okay, he's played in the Big Ten quarterback deal, and he's done a solid job when I watched him play, dropping back in coverage, but in the short, medium range area of the field. That tight end's going to stretch him to see how good of a cover guy he is. And the Saints, like most NFL teams, play nickel 70% of the time or more. So that means 2 linebackers. Well, I can tell you, if Alex Anzalone's healthy, Demario Davis, those are going to be your 2 linebackers in the nickel. Now, who's going to be the 3rd guy when you play in base? Still to be answered. Is it going to be Nigel Bradham? I mean, come on, Nigel's played. He's got experience. He knows the game very well. I want Zach to get those reps. With Troutman, he's intriguing because of his inline blocking skills. He's really good at it. And he's a tough guy, and he's a really hard worker.
How about the transition from Dayton to the NFL, though?
Well, I think there's always that part. But I think it's more the timing between you and the quarterback. Getting that timing down, especially on short window throws where you got to be in that right spot. You can't just drift. You got to be in that spot. We saw it with Jimmy Graham year 1. He didn't have a huge impact early in the year. Those final 6-7 games, Jimmy got it. And it was like, oh, we got some problems here. We're covering that guy. And I think with Troutman, he brings a lot to the table with his physicality, his ability to work that short, medium area of the field. Also, too, when everything's squashed down in the red zone to give you a big target there. But, you know, we're seeing where the matchups now are building of who would make this final cut at receiver, at linebacker, in the secondary. Those guys are going to have to make it on special teams. So a guy like Benny Fowler, he's bounced around this league. He's been in the league since 2014. but he knows how to play special teams, and he's got experience doing it.
Yes.
Marquez Callaway, okay, he was a return man at Tennessee.
Right.
He wasn't on those units. Now they're using him as a gunner. So that's how you're going to make it.
Yes.
If you're going to be that 51st, 52nd, 53rd man, yes, you got to make an impact as a reserve, but you better make an impact on special teams.
It's amazing. You just mentioned two guys that are on my list today, and they were two of the last pickups for this team. Branham at linebacker, Fowler at wide receiver, and it looks like those guys have a legitimate shot at making this roster.
Oh, to me, I'd be shocked if Nigel didn't make this roster. And they didn't give him the memo. You know, he didn't come in here to be no backup.
Right.
You know, he's been a starter most of his career.
Sure.
You know, he's not coming here to, behind some rookie. That rookie better be really good, because in Nigel's mind, he's the starter. Now, again, there's a little bit of transition, but look who he played for in Philly, and Jim Swartz.
Yes.
Every week, man, he changes up things. He's been throwing everything at him. How quickly it all adapts for him will be interesting. No question he makes the roster. I think the big question mark is of how much will he play, because so much of this today is nickel defense. But in the base, don't be surprised, he's your starter at the strong side linebacker position when they play the Bucs.
Talk about Jameis Winston. You mentioned Bucs. Talk about Jameis Winston. Hearing some really good things about him at practice so far. Because as we were talked out last week with Garland Gillen on the program, limited amount of media that's going to be allowed to be able to see the practices. But everything we're hearing, he is doing everything that's asked of him. And
yeah, and because he understands he's at a crossroads in his career, and he's taking a look at the college ranks where the first 3 picks in next year's draft may all be quarterbacks. And then what happens with Derek Carr in Oakland? What happens with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay? You may have a glut again of veteran quarterbacks sort of hit the market. And then, you know, man, I got to put myself in a position here to make a run. And it may not be in a game. Right. Because his game time may be very, very limited or none at all in this spot. We've all known that Sean has always liked Jameis Winston.
Yes.
Even when he came out of Florida State, really liked him. The good with him is he makes some wow throws.
Right. Man. And he can be inconsistent as well.
But the thing that gets me is all his life he's been an arm thrower because he's got it. He's got that rifle. He can get the ball. And I think those guys believe they can get a football in any little crackdown field. You take more chances. And, you know, people say, well, Drew Brees doesn't do that, or Peyton Manning or Phillip Rivers. No, because they didn't have that type of arm strength. They had to learn how to do it a different way. And it's all about touch and being precise. And that's why Drew is sort of so focused on, no, I want rep work. So eventually Sean's going to have to say, Drew, you know, sit this one out. Let Taysom, let Jameis get in there.
Well, you have to, right, because you don't have preseason games.
And the other thing about it, Eric, is I think the keys to the Saints winning in January is, one, a healthy defensive line. You look last year, you went into January with no Marcus Davenport, no Sheldon Rankins. The year before, no Marcus Davenport, Rankins goes down in the playoff game against Philly. So you didn't have him for the Rams game. Man, to me, that's the big key. You got some real big-time talent. And never forget Pete Jenkins, because he works with Anyamata in the offseason. He's like, Mike, you got to tell Sean, he better not let that Anyamata go anywhere. I think he's going to be a star. I said, well, okay, I got a slot open Monday night. You want to come on and say it? Yeah. He said, give me the slot. And, man, he waved the flag for Anyamata in that. I think from what Pete's telling me, he's got a chance not only to be good, he's got a chance to be an elite defensive tackle. That it's all starting to come around for him right now. And Drew Brees on offense. No. You got to have him healthy and strong in January.
I agree. And again, like it or not, that 5 games that he missed helped him a lot in being fresh down the stretch.
Okay, where would the Chiefs have been last year with no Patrick Mahomes and Alex Smith, God bless him, with that injury he's got. But if Alex Smith is playing quarterback for the Chiefs, they're not going to the Super Bowl. No. Mahomes was the key to the whole deal. Now, the 49ers proved Garoppolo was serviceable and he was solid, but they won with a stifling defense and a running game. And up into 7 minutes left in the Super Bowl, they had them by the teriyaki.
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden, Mahomes flipped the switch.
Right.
And it was like, we in big trouble. And look, the score of that game, there was no indication of how close it was. And Garoppolo's got a chance to hit a wide open Emmanuel Sanders late, and he misses it.
Let's head to the phone lines. Jack is in River Ridge. Jack, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Jack.
Good evening. Good evening, guys. Y'all, I have a couple of questions. I'll make it quick. First of all, I think all of these decisions are going to be about money, whether you're talking about college or pro. Okay.
Yeah, right.
I think the reason SEC is playing is because of money.
Yep.
All right. And so, I was just wondering, why do y'all think that these football players, who are all between in college and pro, but mostly between 18 and 30, are going to have more success dealing with this than the general population is? Why are they going to have more discipline? And guys, I want there to be football. I'm just not sure we're going to make it through the season. Thank you. I'll listen to your answer. Thank you.
It's a great question. I think the discipline of people, I think, is going to be put in play.
Yeah.
And I think as you get a little bit older, a little bit more mature, and you're getting paid a ton of money, you know what's on the line.
Sure.
I think you would have better. I question that more in the college game, because I do know, in being young, you can get distracted very, very quickly.
Sure.
That can happen in the pro game too, but I would worry about what happens late, because we all know as December rolls around, that flu and that cold, that pneumonia season hits,
right?
And it may not just be COVID. You may be dealing with another issue at that point too. And so it's a great question. I do think the older you get a little bit more mature and you understand your position than, say, an 18, 19-year-old who thinks he's invincible. I'm not going to get this.
Right.
But they can bounce back normally much quicker, a younger person from it.
Greg is in Houma. Greg, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Greg.
Hey, guys. I got my question about the college championship, national champions. With all these, conferences not playing, how do you have a national champion without an asterisk? And I'll hang up and listen.
Great question. Mike?
Man, if I win it, ain't no asterisk by my name.
Right.
My thing is I won it. You decided not to play, there's nothing I can do about it. It'll be interesting how that is set up in that Final Four with it. Now, people say an asterisk next to it. Okay, you're not Barry Bonds. You're not taking steroids. You won it legit.
Yes.
At that point in time, the Pac-12 and the Big Ten decided not to play at that point. So there's nothing you can do about it.
If you ain't at the dance, you can't dance.
That's right. And so my thing about it is, for some people, put the asterisk next to it. If I win it, I could care less.
Right.
I got the championship in my case, and like it or not, that's just the way it is. It'll be interesting how that voting goes around, though, because we've seen, and we saw last year for a time, man, that was a big push with Big Ten teams until they started to one after the other fall off, other than Ohio State. Because at one time, didn't they try to convince you how great Penn State was? Didn't they try to convince you how great Michigan was? And then what happened?
Yes.
They got cold-cocked. The same thing in the Pac-12, where you legitimately today have one power there, Oregon, that they can get in the ring with an SEC team. Man, if USC's on my schedule or UCLA, now, when we were growing, that's a different story.
No doubt.
But, man, get me them teams on my schedule today. That's the way I want it. And so what are you eliminating here? Ohio State and Oregon.
Right. Got about 3 minutes left. Alvin Gentry has been fired with 1 year left on his contract. He'll be okay. He's getting about $5 million. 175 and 225 is his tenure as coach. He had over 140 starting lineups, according to Forbes, during his 5 seasons here. 1 playoff win in terms of series against the Blazers. To me, it should have been done when they got rid of Dell Demps. Now, again, there were rumors out there that Gail Benson, because of the Anthony Davis situation, the way it was handled, that Gentry was brought back. This is now going to be Griff's decision. You and I were talking about this before we came on the air. I want to remind everybody about a guy's name by the name of David Blatt, okay, who, again, came from Europe and was going to be the head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers until LeBron came back home. And then at that point, it was Tyronn Lue, and Blatt was out. It'll be interesting to see what direction he goes in terms of a head coach.
I think about New Orleans in 2 of the 3 biggest decisions for this Saints football team. Jim Finks came in, and he could have hired an experienced coach.
Yes.
And he got Jim Moore, who had coached in the USFL, but had never been a head coach before at all. Right. And he brought him in. After the 2005 season, Tom Benson wanted Mike Sherman, who had just been fired in Green Bay, and he had a successful run there other than the final year. Tom wanted Sherman to be the coach, but Mickey made the decision to bring in Sean Payton. Sean had never been a head coach. Man, it's got to be the right fit, Eric.
I agree.
And my thing is, if you're bringing in Griffin to run your team, you got to let him make the call.
He has to make the call
as the head coach.
Right.
So you wasted a year here.
You wasted a year of Zion Williamson.
And so, you know, I don't get it. And some of the names that are being thrown out there, my thing is this the best?
Right.
Are you telling us this is the most lucrative job in the NBA, and these are some of the names?
Right.
Come on.
A lot of retreads.
A lot of them. And my thing about it is, when you think about the Toronto Raptors, okay, and Nick Nurse, okay?
Right. Who knew Nick Nurse?
Ain't nobody knew who Nick Nurse. He was coaching in Europe. He was a D-League coach. He comes in and he wins the championship last year in Toronto. Look how good of a team he's got this year.
No.
And he lost one of the star players.
He lost one of the best in the NBA.
And that's unbelievable that he's been able to keep that up. And you think about San Antonio.
Right.
You think about that coach. Never a head coach before. And he was the general manager, director of basketball operations. He fires the coach, he takes over. And Pop's one of the all-time greats.
Yep, no doubt about it. Kenny Atkinson is a name that's been thrown out there. Again, there's ties to Trajan Langdon, his time in Brooklyn. Of course, Tyronn Lue's been thrown out there because of the Cleveland situation with David Griffin. It'll be interesting to see, again, which direction he goes. No matter who it is, I believe it has to be a coach that demands defense. Now, I know there's not a lot of defense in the NBA, but again, you have to be able to stop, especially getting into playoffs and a half-court game. You have to be able to play some semblance of defense.
And you have a young team, and you got to think about dealing those picks and bringing in a veteran center and veteran people on your team. You've got all those good young players. Now you need to supplement that with a good veteran center, someone else, if it's out on the perimeter or at guard, that can help out. Because are you going to be young with forever?
Right. No,
it's not going to work.
I agree. Tonight is the draft lottery. They can end up obviously in the top 3, pardon me, or again either 13th or 14th. They have 3 second-round picks this year. So to your point, I believe that Griff will be dealing those picks to be able to get a veteran center and again maybe a player on the perimeter as well.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that I would look at you know, if I was running. But it's got to be the right fit for your team as the head coach. It can't be a guy just because he was a head coach before. That doesn't make him the genius. And if he's an offensive-oriented coach,
no.
Scratch you off the list real quick.
That to me, again, offense is just a natural in the NBA now.
Yes.
You've got to be able to have somebody. And again, they still need that alpha male in that locker room because it's a players' league. And they did not have that this year. They need a Chris Paul type, a Rajon Rondo type. Hopefully they'll get that. Mike, as always, thanks so much for being with us.
Appreciate
Mike
it,
Detillier with us here on Inside New Orleans Sports. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLAE at 10 p.m. And now 2 ways to be able to catch us on Pelican Sports Television. 9 o'clock every Friday night, Saturday afternoon at 5 p.m. Also the WLAE YouTube page. You can also Google Inside New Orleans Sports and you'll get all of the latest shows as well. You can catch me on the radio starting on August the 31st, that's Monday, August 31st, on 106.1 FM, WRKN here in New Orleans. I'll be moving from middays to drive time, 5 to 7. Looking forward to that. It'll also be on the TuneIn radio app for those of you that are not in the New Orleans metropolitan area. So as always, we appreciate you tuning into the radio show. Looking forward to getting back on the airwaves there. Again, special thanks to Mike Detillier for joining us tonight on the program. Also the WLAE production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Alex Chacon, Claudia Lopez, and my director, William Hill. For Mike Detillier, I'm Eric Asher. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.